Hello viewers, welcome to the Shunned Experience channel. I'm joined this evening by Dan Riley, who's based over in the States. How are you doing, Dan?
Good. How are you doing, Jordan?
I'm not too bad, thank you. It's great to get you onto the channel.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be one of your first guests here after your brother, of course.
No, that's brilliant. It's great to get you onto the channel. So, I mean, we've chatted previously before, but if you want to tell the viewers something I think you're working on a project at the minute. Obviously, you're an XJW yourself, but you've got a special project you're working on at the minute. If you tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a musician. I've been writing music and playing since I was about 13 years old. One of my uncles gave me an old beat up guitar, and it was a beat up electric guitar, and I kind of like put it back together as best I could and painted it green for some reason. It was actually a beautiful wood color. I don't know why. Nice. But I was a teenager, so we make weird choices as teenagers. But anyway, so that was my first guitar, and I just pretty much taught myself. My father and my brothers play, but in my house it was kind of like every man for himself. So I started playing guitar, and I was dyslexic growing up, so it was really difficult to read. So you can imagine a theocratic ministry school was a lot of fun for me.
I can feel your pain with that one as well, because I'm dyslexic. So yeah, that was great fun.
The Bible reading was the worst. I swear to you, I worked on fluency for the first 10 years of being in the school. It's like, I got a W pretty much every time. Well, we didn't get to work on fluency, Brother Riley. Yeah,
we'll have to give you some private counsel in the back room after. That's that old chestnut we used to get.
And my father was the overseer, the school overseer. So that made it even more fun when he made me work on fluency.
Lots of pressure then, yeah. Oh, God.
But anyway, so I because I had difficulty reading and had dyslexia, I started writing my own music right away. It was easier for me to just write my own music than to learn from sheet music or tablature or anything like that. So I've been really writing since I started playing guitar, and after going through leaving the organization and kind of finding my own way, the songs that started coming out of me very much had to do with that situation. And I've always used music as a way to help process emotion, and probably as the type of therapy as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's, those songs started coming to me. And so I've got an album that's coming out this year. It's called Waking Up. And so there are 10 songs on there. I've got a few others that some that I may put on, some that I may leave out. But I just released the first song from that album, and it's called Mama. And it's basically a letter to my mother. And essentially, just kind of when I wrote that, I was really going through some emotional turmoil about missing my family, and in particular my mother, because we were very close when I was younger. She was probably my best friend for at least the first 12 years of my life. And even after that, there were things that happened in my family that kind of shook things up a little bit and kind of affected the relationship somewhat. But I was always extremely close to her and just loved her very much. And so that's what that song is about. And so that song Mama, I released a video on YouTube as well. And it's also on Spotify and pretty much any kind of digital platform, be it Apple Music or Pandora or wherever you get your music, it's probably there. So that was that's the first song that's come off the album. It's named Mama. And then I have the other songs that will be coming out, and that one probably is the most emotional. At the end of the video, I actually had some XJWs submit pictures of themselves, and so in the end of the video, the family of the XJWs are faded out, and there's some like filmography that I didn't do. I had a team that I was very fortunate to work with because they felt very passionate about the project. And so the reason for me putting this out is kind of twofold. One is really probably the more selfish reason is just that I really feel driven to do it, and that in order to kind of fully release and process all that I've been through, losing my family. I mean, you're going through the same thing. Most of the people watching this video are probably going through or have been through the same thing and are in different stages of processing this. And so, having gone through all of the emotions and the frustration and the anger and all of that comes out, I kind of want to move on from it and just not think about it anymore.
Yeah, that would be nice. I know that switch it off, couldn't it? Yeah.
Right. I know that's never really going to happen, but I have come to a place of acceptance of the situation. I have love for my family. I don't have any anger or resentment towards them. I know that they think they're doing the best thing, as strange as that sounds to anyone outside of the organization. So that's really the first reason that I'm doing this project and putting it out there. It's just a way for me to release these emotions that I've having, these thoughts, and kind of just put it out into the universe and let it go. So that's, probably the main reason. And then the secondary reason for releasing this is that I really do think that my music has the ability to help others. And I've had a lot of comments from from posting the video on YouTube and sharing it on Facebook and on some other platforms, that it has been helpful for fellow ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to kind of hear this song, to give them an opportunity to process some of what they're going through and maybe reflect. But that's really a big part of it for me too. And also for like my world to be able to kind of educate people that I know, whether it's through Facebook or social media, as to not just what I'm going through, because really, if one person went through this, it would be horrible. But there's hundreds of thousands of people that have been disfellowshipped or left the organization, and they pretty much all of them, every once in a while you meet someone that's like, oh, well, I still have contact with my family. That's probably like 2 to 5% of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I really don't think the percentage rate is that high, at least not from those that I've spoken to. And so for most of us, it's a complete devastating loss of everything we ever knew. And so if my thing kind of going into this was, if I can help one person to feel a little bit better or to process this, to help make sense of things, then I'll feel like I've succeeded and done what I wanted to do. And so I do feel that's happening, that people are being helped by it. And I'm grateful to be able to just put it out there in that way.
I can share your sentiments there, because obviously I've recently just set the channel up myself, and that's what I've said to a lot of people. If I can help one person, make them feel better with the process of coming out, or even helping current witness with the waking up process, then
right. Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely a big part of it too for me, is like, as soon as you and I have said something publicly, and as soon as any of us say something publicly, that now we have a new label. Not only are we disfellowship, but now we're an apostate. And, you know, I'm not, for me personally, I understand, like, people want to take down the organization or whatever. Like, that's, I have no judgment towards anyone and what their motives are and what they want to do. For me personally, that's not it. For me, if I can prevent someone from having to go through what I've been through, then absolutely I want to do that. I have 2 older children, they're teenagers, who are still being raised by their mother as witnesses. And so that's, you know, that's another thing, like another loss that I have to look toward as they get older, is that the reality is that I'm probably going to lose them at some point. And I've been told as much by one of them. So, you know, and we are extremely close. We have a very good relationship, but it's because they believe it's the right thing. And so if I can help any current Jehovah's Witnesses, if they hear the music or see any of the videos that will come along with it, if they just click on the song and they don't know, and then they see the end of the video and there's a very brief message at the end of the video. But if they can just be touched and like realize maybe they don't even leave the organization, but instead of completely shunning a family member, they reach out to them, or, you know, just send them a text message or reply to a text message, you know, just anything, you know.
I watched your video to your song Mama on YouTube, and we've all got a love for music, but I think it was a song, obviously for us personally, but obviously for me as well, to be able to relate to all the lyrics. And then I could, you know, that little ending scene you've got with the photographs and the people who are like, you've saged out of the photograph. It's incredibly powerful, and I think it's a nice and very unique way of speaking out, if you want to call it that. You know, like many people like myself are on YouTube setting channels up, but I think the way you're going as well might reach a bit deeper with some ex-JWs and even existing, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses. So, you know, you should be immensely proud of what you're doing. You know, I really enjoyed watching that video, and I look forward to listening to the album when it comes out.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it is, and that's kind of the way that I've thought of it too, is that, you know, music has the power to move us emotionally, and if we're moved emotionally, that can bring us to some sort of action. And, you know, that's exactly what they do at the Kingdom Hall. They play those songs and they want you to get excited about being there. And I'm an emotional person to begin with, and I was a song crier. Like at the end of the conventions, like I would cry at the last song of every convention.
They found a way of pulling at the heartstrings, didn't they? Some of them, didn't they?
You know, and I look back at that and I'm like, oh man, they got me. They got me so good. And I remember even there being articles in the Watchtower about music and our choice of music, and how important it is that we are selective, and because it can change our thinking or affect us in that way. And so, yeah, you know, it's not a superpower by any means, but yeah. I feel like it is a gift that I have that is able to hopefully help some. And just like you putting this channel up, I feel like that's a gift to all of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, to be able to have a place to tune in and hear someone else that's going through what we're going through and what we've been through. So thank you for doing that.
No, it's great to hear the good feedback. Appreciate it. If you could perhaps give us a bit of context now, in terms of your background and upbringing, you know, if you could go like right back to the start and sort of explain to the viewers, you know, how your family became involved with Jehovah's Witnesses and sort of your story, if you like.
Yeah. And so for me, it started in the womb. um, my parents were born in the 50s, grew up in the 60s. Both of them were hippies and were very much into like the hippie movement and anti-government and anti-establishment and that sort of thing. And so and also like my father was raised as a Catholic, and my mother, I think she was kind of in between. She didn't have a very strong religious upbringing. My father had gone to Catholic school, and so he'd always tell stories about Catholic school and how terrible the Catholics were. Very much kind of hate speech against Catholics. I thought they were probably the worst thing you could be growing up. But then my parents, someone knocked on their door around just before the time that I was born, and my mother was pregnant with me when she was baptized. And I like to say that I'm one of the few people that was baptized twice, because
yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, you must have been you've been baptized twice.
Yeah, that was some. I used to joke with my witness friends about that. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been baptized twice, and they're like, what? No, that's not. You can't be baptized twice. And I was like, no, I was. But anyway, so they came into the organization as I was a child. And it's funny, just then when I said they came into the organization, I had to stop myself from saying the truth, because that's how deeply ingrained this has been in my
I'm the
life.
same now. I have to sometimes remember, like, it's not the truth anymore, but because it just rolls off the tongue and has done for 20 odd years, even when I've been out of it, it's like, it's not the truth. It's the organization.
Yeah, and it never was. I mean, parts of it are probably true, but there's a lot that's not, for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll be filtering myself. I might correct myself as we go through this conversation, because even after, I've been out for about 13 years now. But I was my mother was baptized when I was a baby, grew up with my parents very much zealous. To this day, they're very zealous, good, would be considered good witnesses. Both of them have problems like any other human being, and were not perfect parents. There were definitely things that I'm trying not to repeat with my children that happened in my childhood. But all in all, they're good people, and they did the best that they could with the set of skills that they had. Both of them are pretty intelligent, or very intelligent people, really. And so, to hear what I was being taught coming from them as a child was really taken kind of as law, because they were some of the smartest people I've ever met, even with teachers in school and all that. They're just really smart folks. So I wish I inherited more of the smarts personally. But anyway, so I was raised as a witness. My older brothers pioneered when I graduated high school. I pioneered. Got married at 20 years old, married the first person I dated.
Very common theme that is amongst Jehovah's Witnesses, me included.
Yeah. And that didn't turn out so well, surprisingly enough, for various reasons. And I definitely won't put all blame on her. I was 20 years old at the time. I hardly, looking back, I thought I knew myself. And and that's just one of the things about being raised as a witness, is you think you know so much more than you actually do, and you think you're so smart and you've just got things figured out. And I really, I never thought of myself as kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like self like I'm not, I usually help, like I love to help others. I'm not like build myself up. I can be very self-flagellating, but in that way, like I just thought I had things figured out. Like I knew the truth. What else is, what else do you need? The truth. And I thought that people who weren't witnesses didn't have things figured out, and it's just the mindset that I had, and it's embarrassing to say that now. But that said, I did not have things figured out, and within the first week of being married, I realized that it was a mistake. There were things going on with my ex-wife that I had no knowledge of prior. Again, not placing blame on her. She's a good person, and she's to this day, I know she's doing the best that she can with what she has. But it was not a situation that I was prepared for. And so I did my best. We were together for a little over 10 years. Well, if you count our dating, probably close to 12 years. During that time, after I turned 18 and graduated high school, I pioneered. I served part-time at Bethel, became a ministerial servant, was appointed an elder at age 24. Served on various committees, and worked with the RBC, and
so you were quite heavily involved in the organization, and very, you'd invested a lot of time and effort into it.
Absolutely. And I really gave it everything that I had, and I really tried to live 100% by the book and what I was supposed to do, and followed the direction of the organization. And I stayed in my marriage for over 10 years and was completely miserable. I literally contemplated suicide on a daily basis for a very long time. It was because I was trying everything that I knew to do, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't helping me to feel any better. And I did start seeing a therapist, and saw a couple of therapists while I was still a witness, and that helped me tremendously to deal with some of the negative soundtrack that went in my head. And that's really one of the things that I'm very adamant about trying to help people to see now, is the importance of self-love and loving ourselves, because I really feel like in the organization, we're taught to hate ourselves. Like,
we're never good enough, are we?
Right. We're never there. You cannot possibly be doing enough. And it's all doubting questions that they place. Like, and it's,
you can always be doing better, can't you? Like you can, like in one of the recent JW broadcasts, is your best really good enough? You know, from Samuel Hurd.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's incredible. I mean, since I've come out of the organization, I was about to say it's the truth then. There's a phrase that I've heard, and it's not. I think it goes along the lines of, it's not selfish to self-love, or something like that.
Yeah,
That's what I've really learned. So like you were saying, you've really got to self-love and look after yourself, and that's something you're not encouraged to do in the organization.
Right, and like I've looked back, and I don't honestly. I probably haven't opened a Bible in a couple of years now. I just I don't have a lot of interest in peering into it any more than I already have in all my years studying. or being spoon-fed is probably more
Yeah.
along the lines of what's true. But I thought it was studying. And, we are constantly told, taught scriptures like love your neighbor as yourself. And the emphasis every time I can ever remember hearing that scripture as a Jehovah's Witness is to love your neighbor. It's about loving your neighbor. And one of the things that would be said off frequently is like, oh, well, we have natural love for ourselves. We don't forget to feed ourselves. And so that's natural love for ourselves. So we need to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. But I mean, I think Jesus was saying a lot more than just love your neighbor there. I think he was emphasizing the point that we also need to love ourselves, and that there's just so much self-hate in the world today, and especially in the organization, and just never being good enough. And I think combating that is just extremely important to help people understand the need to take time for yourself. Doing what's best for you is not a bad thing.
No, absolutely not.
Because if you're not doing what's best for you, then you can't possibly do what's best for everyone else.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't hold resentment or hatred towards witnesses or my family. They're doing what they believe is best for them, and that's fine. They're free to do that. And I'm also free to do what's best for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make me a bad person, because I'm living my life differently than I used to.
And it's sad that choices like this, which are normal choices that everyone makes in life, whether you're religious or non-religious, but when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, you can make them decisions, but it comes at the cost of your family, and it's just incredibly cruel. Even though I'm experiencing it myself, you're experiencing it. When you keep hearing it, it's just incredibly sad that there's so many people out there who are having to go through what we're going through. It's just an infringement of your human rights, as far as I'm concerned. You shouldn't have your family used as leverage to stay in the organization, and shunning is an incredibly cruel thing to do. And you've channeled those emotions by getting into music and releasing an album, but it's sad that there's people out there who aren't that strong and sadly take their own lives because of it. And there's people out there on their own, so it's incredibly sad to see and hear that. So you sort of so how long have you been out of the organization?
So it's been 13 years. I was going to say something too about what you said, like the fact that our families are held as, just in regard to what you'd said, like it's it's emotional blackmail. It's kind of, or there's another word that's better than blackmail. I can't remember what it is right now, but to hold that over people's heads is, just one of the worst things I can think that you could do to a person, to try to get them to submit to what you want.
It's about keeping membership, isn't it? So it's a very clever tactic, but sorry, I'll let you carry on.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been out for 13 years. So like I said, I stuck it out in my marriage for 10 years. And there came a point where I realized that things were not going to get better, that they were just not. That there was something that happened that just, and I don't want to say too much about my ex, because I respect her, and I don't want to give up too much of her personal information, but I'll just say that there was a time when help was offered that could have made things better. And she rejected it. She didn't agree with it, and she didn't want to do it. And she wasn't going to do it. So at that point, it was pretty much the end for me. I was like, okay, if you're not going to acknowledge this and work towards making things better, then I need to figure something out. And suicide for me just wasn't an option because, I mean, frankly, if I didn't have my children, I probably would be dead. But I had two children. I had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time, and I couldn't leave them without me in this world because I know how much they relied on me and how much they loved me. And so I like essentially in my mind, I said, well, it's one of two things that will make this situation different or better. It's emotional, or it's like suicide, I just end everything, or it's like communal suicide, or essentially just killing off myself from the world that I was a part of, and starting over. And so I had the knowledge of that going into it, and it was also something that I realized I wasn't strong enough to do on my own. And so I found someone that could help me emotionally through that time. And so I started a relationship with another woman. And I have regrets about the way that I went about that. I wish that in that circumstance, I had been strong enough to just leave my ex, but I knew with everything that makes me up, with my entire being, that if I did that, if I left her, if I tried to work things out in the organization, that eventually I would end up back in that same spot. That I would be counseled, I would cave to the pressure of the organization and the counsel that they give to make things work, and I'm too soft of a person. I just am. I'm a softie, and I knew that I would end up back there, and I knew that I could not end up back there because there was the possibility that I would end up like really dead. So I knew the only way for me to get out, and the only way that I would probably get an actual divorce, was if I committed adultery. And so that's what I did. And the person that I had a relationship was she was a very nice, good person. At the time, I didn't intentionally use her in that way. I was attracted to her. I did like her, but looking back, I feel really bad about that because it wasn't fair to her, for sure. And so, it's unfortunately we can't go back. And so I have regrets about the way that I handled the situation, but I didn't know any other way to do it. And so that's what I did. Got this fellowship for adultery. It took a while for my divorce to be final, but ended up with the divorce a couple of years later. Had shared, and I still have shared custody of my two older children. And I broke up with the person that I had started a relationship with because I simply could not handle the guilt associated with that. I tried going back, actually. So that was the first disfellowshipping. Sorry, it is kind of funny to me now, though, that I should have known that there was that I needed to stay out, but it takes me a long time to learn things sometimes, so I'm a slow learner. So anyway, I broke up with the woman that I was in a relationship with. I was going to meetings pretty much from the time that I left, and got reinstated. Was back for about 6 months, and I want to say I had just got my commenting privileges back at the meeting when I met my current wife. And the way I met her is actually, she came in for a job interview with my company, and I was interviewing her. And I hadn't dated anyone in 2 years. I was being a good Jehovah's Witness boy. I wasn't, I was just by myself. I'm like, I've got my kids, my business. I don't need anything else. I do not want to be married again, because I don't want to be have that responsibility for like I had before. And I'm just gonna get reinstated and be a good witness, and I'll work my way back in and have my family back and all that. So anyway, my wife came in for a job interview, which lasted 3 hours. We just connected immediately, and I walked away from that. We both walked away from that interview going like, that really felt like a date.
You have quite the connection then.
Yeah, she got the job.
I was about to say that she definitely got to get the job, surely.
Yeah, she got the job. We only ended up working together for a few weeks, and I was reinstated at the time, and like I said, I had just gotten my commenting privileges at the meeting back, but just seemed so stupid to me to have this connection with a person that I'd never experienced before. I'd never experienced a connection like that, and to not pursue it, just, it seemed dumb to me. It's, and so I did pursue it, and we started dating. We ended up getting married like 4 months later. It was a very quick start to the relationship. And but during that time, I mean, we had sex.
As you do. Yeah.
As you do when you are really into somebody. Or as people do, and not Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, it's a normal part of being a human, yeah.
We know no Jehovah's Witnesses have sex outside of marriage. But I'm just an honest person, and I'm as honest as I possibly can be. And I also carried the guilt of the way that we were raised very heavily. And so I couldn't, in good conscience, continue going to meetings and like having a relationship and having sex and not confess to it. So I told the elders, and I told them, we're getting married. We're going to be married like in a month. So I'm probably not going to stop doing it. It's kind of fun. So, yeah. I mean, I could say I'm not going to do it, but the reality is I'm probably going to do it. Yeah. So I was just, I came clean about it, and I was disfellowshipped again. And so that was something. I actually broke up with my current wife for like a day, because I just didn't, I had obviously a lot of baggage. I knew that this disfellowshipping was coming. I knew that that was going to be a thing. So there was going to be a strained relationship with my family. I had, financial issues from my first marriage because of the way that panned out. And, just issues basically. And I was like, you don't need to burden yourself with me. And another thing about my wife is that she loves to travel. She's very much got the wanderlust in her blood. And I had 2 children that I'm not going to leave until they're old enough to care for themselves. And so marrying me meant that she was going to be basically grounded for the next 13 to 15 years or however long it was. And so I broke up with her, but about a few hours after I broke up with her, she called me and she said, "Are you breaking up with me because you don't want to be with me? Or are you breaking up with me because you think it's what's best for me?" And so I was honest and said, "Because I think it's what's best for you." And she said, "Well, you don't get to make that decision." That's my decision.
Fair point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "Okay, you got me." And so we got back together. We got married. And I started going back to meetings again, like very shortly after we were married, and kept going to the meetings for a little over 2 years. My wife got pregnant with our first child together, and I had been going to I was going to every meeting for 2 years, Jordan. Every meeting. I studied for every meeting. I underlined the answers. I read the scriptures. I was praying daily. I was doing my daily Bible reading. I was reading the magazines when they came out. I was doing everything that I should do for a little over 2 years. And I was in a different congregation than I had been disfellowshipped from. So I finally applied for reinstatement. And I mean, at this point, I still really thought that everybody should be Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I believed it still.
So you're still mentally into the religion?
Right. I was still mentally in. And so I applied for reinstatement. And of course, because I was in a different congregation, they had to send me to the other congregation, which was local. So I ended up going back to the original committee that I met. And I showed up at the Kingdom Hall for my reinstatement hearing or meeting or whatever you want to call it. And I waited for an hour and a half in the main hall while they deliberated in the back room.
God, that's quite a long time, that is. Cool.
Yeah, and I was an elder, and I served on judicial committees, and I served on reinstatement committees.
Yeah, so you know what's
involved. That never happened. Like that wasn't if you need to talk beforehand, you talk beforehand, and then you tell the person to be there 30 minutes later. Like it's just a simple kindness that you don't keep someone waiting for an hour or an hour and a half. Anyway, so that was extremely frustrating for me. So when I finally got back there, I was already like, what the heck is going on? Why would they tell me to be here at 2:00 and it's 3:30 and I'm just getting in? And my wife with our new baby is at home, and she's asked me how long it's going to be. And I said, oh, probably be like, a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours. And here it's already been an hour and a half and no progress has been made whatsoever. Anyway, so I go back there and come to find out they'd been calling. They called my parents. They called some of my brothers. They called my ex-wife, and they were calling and asking my family about me before they ever met with me. And which is just a ridiculous thing to happen, because my family hadn't talked to me in 2 years, the entire time that I'd been disfellowshipped. They didn't know what was going on with me. I didn't communicate with them. That, it blew my mind that this is what this committee thought was the right thing to do. Not just to keep me waiting, but to call my family before meeting with me.
It's the audacity of them to do that is incredible.
I was in that meeting. I had a moment of I don't get mad very frequently. I'm very pretty much cool cucumber, as they say. But I was pretty frustrated when I found out that's what they were doing. Especially my ex-wife. They said they were calling to see if I was paying my child support payments.
I fail to see what relevance that's got to do with reinstating you into the congregation.
Right. And if, like, they won't report sex offenders, but they're gonna check to see if I'm paying
Yeah,
my
they want to
child
check the CSA payments. Yeah, no, it's quite a good point, that.
And so anyway, I met with them, and I mean, I was frustrated, but I was still like, I was repentant, as repentant as I could possibly be. I during the meeting, I poured my heart out. I cried, about the situation, because I just felt like I had really not done the right thing. Again, like, I told them how I had feelings of just not being good enough, not being a, even worthy to serve Jehovah, and all of these things. And they dismissed me and brought me back in about 30 minutes later. So here it's been, we're going on 4 hours, and I've been at the Kingdom Hall for this reinstatement meeting. And they bring me back in, and they say, well, we've come to, the conclusion that you're not ready to be reinstated. We feel like, you mentioned that you miss your family, and, that's not a reason to want to be reinstated. And they totally dismissed all of the other things that I said. Like, I've been cut off from them for 2 years, and for, years prior to that. And so of course I'm going to mention that that's something that I'm experiencing, because I'm an honest human being. But so I said, okay, well, I understand. Do you think I should wait? And again, like, I'm accepting all of this. I'm thinking, well, they're the brothers in charge. They're the elders. Like, I need to take the counsel. This is Jehovah teaching me patience or something. Like, there's something I need to learn from this. And like, okay, so when do you think I should apply for reinstatement? They said, well, we can't tell you that. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, I said, like 6 months, a year? When do you think it will be appropriate? We can't tell you that. You'll just have to, when it feels right, reapply. Again, when I think about that meeting, I will curse. And I'm not someone that throws out those swear words all the time, but it makes me extremely angry to think that these were men who are supposed to be representing Jehovah God, representing Jesus Christ, the example of love that we've been given all these years, and they just have not an ounce of love shown. And it does make me angry to think about that.
I think that's the overriding emotion for all of us, especially when you come out of it. Like, obviously, I never applied for reinstatement, but I've been disfellowship this year for 4 years, and I'd say 3 of those I had a lot of serious anger issues, so I can totally relate to how you feel.
And so I don't, like I said, I'm very much a person who likes to focus on the positive, and so I don't think about that very often. I don't get angry about it very often, because I just don't think about it. But when I think about that, I wasn't treated the way that any human being should be treated. So it took me a while after that. It took me about another 5 years before I finally, like, really started waking up and realized that, like, these men are not gatekeepers to God's love. Like, that's not, that's just ridiculous, that they think they are, and that they've been told that they are. So anyway, about 5 years later, about 7 years after I was disfellowshipped, one night my wife and I were sitting on the couch watching a Netflix special. It was Seth Rogen, like, comedy special kind of thing, and it was some kind of fundraiser that he was doing, and the Muppets came on, and I think we talked about the Muppets previously. You're familiar with them. For those that aren't familiar with the Muppets, they're puppets. It was a TV show. They used to come on when I was a kid, and they had movies. And, being raised a witness, there's a lot that's kind of off limits, but the Muppets was something that my family was kind of a tradition with my family, that I think it was Friday night, we'd watch the Muppets together. And so the Muppets came onto this Seth Rogen special and started singing this song called Rainbow Connection. And I just had a complete emotional breakdown. I just started crying and couldn't stop, and essentially curled up in the fetal position in a way that has never happened to me in my life. And I just broke. I had very much, for those first 7 years of being disfellowshipped, compartmentalized my feelings about the situation and toward my family and missing them. And I didn't, occasionally I would miss them, and it would affect me somewhat, but for the most part, I pretty much had shut that off and just didn't allow myself to deal with that. But probably like within 6 months of going to that reinstatement meeting, I stopped attending meetings unless my older children were visiting, and then I would take them to the meetings when they were with me. And that was the only time I would go. And so at that point, I think I was probably still even taking them to the meetings, but it just hit me really hard. It all came out at once, and it stuck with me for a while. About a month and a half to 2 months later, my wife concerned for me and just being so depressed. She asked me, she's like, what are you going to do? Like, well, you need to do something about what you're going through, whether it's, see a therapist, or you need to process this. And so she said, why don't you take some time for yourself? Like, go away as long as you need to go away for. Just go and figure things out, and just come back when you're ready. And so I'm extremely grateful for that. And she said it in a loving way. She wasn't kicking me out, telling me take my problems.
Yeah, she was looking out for your interest.
Right. Yeah. And so she found this place in the next state over in North Carolina. It was called Mountain Light Sanctuary, and it's a pay what you can kind of sanctuary. So you can go there and just pay whatever whatever you're able to. And it's in the mountains, just a beautiful surroundings. And prior to my visit there, I had never believed in holy ground or like spiritual places very much. I just never had thought of it, but there's something special about that place and the land there. And it definitely is a healing place. And so I went there for, I think, 4 or 5 days, and I actually did something else I'd never done before. I fasted water fasted for several days, and spent time just meditating and reading and writing. And it was there that I came to the conclusion that I would never return to the organization. And it was there that I came to the conclusion that I didn't agree with a lot of what I was taught, and that it's ridiculous that blood transfusions are off limits when they can save lives. Like blood, and it finally occurred to me, like, blood, why is blood sacred? Why? It's because in the Bible it says the life is in the blood. So it's the life that's sacred. It's not the it's not the blood. So if you can save a life with the blood, it just, these things started just clicking while I was there. And I was like, wow, this is, I'm going to need to learn how to process this, because I had always had a hope in my mind that I'd have a relationship with my family again. And I knew at this point that I needed to give up hope. And for my own sanity and for my own emotional well-being, that I could no longer hope to have a relationship with my family or to ever talk to them again or ever hear from them again, because that would just keep me in a constant state of emotional want and prevent me from being fully emotional to other people as well. And so, yeah, I really came to the realization of needing to accept the situation. And so I had some interesting experiences while I was there. One day I went for a trail run. I looked at the trail map before I went out, and I had talked to some people about the trail I was going on, and headed out, and I was looking for this place called Fairy Falls. And it seemed like I missed it, but I remembered the map and I remembered what I'd been told, so I kept going. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going the right direction here, but I kept pressing on. Finally, I came to this gravel road that crossed the trail I was on, and I remembered that road on the map, and it was about a mile past Fairy Falls where I was trying to go. So I found myself at a literal crossroads going, all this time, I've thought I was going the right direction. People have told me that I'm going the right direction, but I'm not. I need to figure out another way. So I turned around and I went back down the trail, and I never found Fairy Falls. And I ended up sitting on this big green rock by the river and meditating and just asking the question, you know, how do I handle this? What do I do? And the answer that came to me was extremely simple. It just kind of appeared to me, and I just knew it and heard it and everything. And it's just love. Like that's the way that I need to go through life, is with love. Love for my family, just love for everybody. I've been judged enough for any 10 people, and I don't need more judgment. And I'm very open about my life and about what I've been through, because I don't care if you judge me. Like, you're welcome to judge me, but it doesn't matter. You know, judgment, I've already been judged by everybody I ever knew and found not worthy to be in their life. So there's no one that can judge me now that is going to make me feel any worse than that. So I just go through life with as much love as possible. When I miss my family, I reach out to them, and I don't ever get a reply. I've never once in 10 years gotten a reply, except for one time my brother texted back, "Who's this?" I got a new phone.
Yeah.
I got a new phone. Who's this? And I said, Dan, and then it was radio silence. Because I had sent them a message to say, hey, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I love you very much. And if you ever need anything, I'm here. And so anyway, but yeah, so no response to that. And I don't expect anything from them. I don't expect them to respond. But when I'm moved with love to let them know that they are loved by me, then I do that. And, you know, part of me kind of deliberated about that for a while. Like, well, is that fair to them? Is it fair to them to put that on them, that now they got a message from me and now they have to look at their phone and think about me? It's okay if you don't want to give it back to me, but that's what I'll give you when I feel moved to do so. And and that's what, you know, the song To My Mother, to circle back to what we started talking about, you know, and that's what that is about. It's about my love for her and expressing that love for her, and expressing, you know, a desire to have that relationship still, even though I accept the fact that that's never going to happen. It doesn't mean that I don't wish it could. So,
would you say, in the time that you've been out of the truth, as hard as all of this is, would you say that you're a happier person now than the time you spent in the truth or the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, my wife is my best friend, and she's just incredible in so many ways. And of course, we both have our shortcomings. We don't see eye to eye 100% of the time. You know, it's it's no different than any other relationship, other than for us, um, it comes down to we love each other and we're going to work through whatever challenges come up.
Hmm.
And so um, when there's something that's difficult for us to, or we're not seeing eye to eye, or there's a disagreement, that's what it comes back to. Even though there might be the emotions that come along with those things, there might be anger, there might be frustration, but at the end of the day, we're willing to put in the work to get through it.
Mm.
Whereas in my first marriage, I didn't have that. And so that's, you know, I'm just so grateful to have a partner that is so loving and understanding of my situation and supports me fully. So,
Yeah, I think it's great, obviously, to hear, and obviously to get, if there's a message, obviously, us as ex Jehovah's Witnesses want to get across to existing witnesses is that we are happier on the other side, because the way, especially the governing body, paint ourselves apostates to be, you know, we've got, we're miserable people, we harbor grudges and resentment, and it's not that at all. It's, we're just here to support the other ex-JWs, but also make people aware that they are, you know, committing to a cult, and it costs people's lives with blood transfusions or the refusal of them, or, you know, the breaking up of the families. And it's nice to hear another story, but the most important bit is you're happier on the other side of it. It's as hard as it is not to have that contact with your family, but it's always important to remember that's not on you, that's on them. They've got a choice,
right.
you know, and I'm sure if they decided to reach out to you one day, then I'm sure you would open them, you know, or talk to them with open arms.
I absolutely would. And that's one thing, you know, another thing that I'll say is I know there are a lot of XJWs who do not, like, I consider myself very fortunate to have found a partner like I have. That's not going to happen for everybody. And it's just the way the world works.
Yeah.
It's not going to work like that for everybody. And so for those folks in that situation um, that are by themselves and trying to figure this out, what I would say is um, find a community that you belong to. And whether, you know, I just joined the XJW community last year. I really didn't know a whole lot about it. And actually, my wife, she was a Redditor from way back. She's been on Reddit for a long time, and so she had told me about like the subreddit XJW, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. I avoided it completely because I was like, I don't want to hear people like talking bad about the organization, and I just thought, you know, we're told to avoid apostates, and so that's what I was doing. Like, I'm like, it's full of apostates. Like, I don't want to surround myself by that. But that's been a huge support to me. Now, even after coming out and being out and waking up, it's still a support to have people who understand to some extent what you're going through. So find your community and go with it. The other thing for me, I've built community in music, and I'm an outgoing person, and so whenever I hear someone playing live music somewhere, I go up and I talk to that person. I get their contact information. I connect, because that's something that I'm passionate about and that I love, and I love hearing other people play music. Um, you know, and I host events. I don't know if I mentioned this when we talked earlier, but I host like kind of like singer-songwriter events where I'll have like 10 or 12 songwriters come out and play some of their songs. Or I actually hosted a music festival 2 years ago, and then last year it was canceled because of COVID, but I've got it going again this fall. A music festival that is just a 30 bands camping, like a whole weekend kind of thing, and to be a part of something that like brings people joy and happiness, to be a part of that, it just makes me feel fulfilled and happy in a way that I never was as a witness. I actually liked the ministry. One of the few people I loved, but it was because I loved helping people. And so I just loved like meeting people and getting to know them. And then when you'd meet that friendly person, I genuinely really enjoyed it. But that's so few and far between. And when you can find a group, like if whatever it is you're into, if you're into soccer or knitting or, reading books or whatever it is, find your community that you can connect with, and then don't just, hang out on the fringes of it. Start to make connections with people, and you'll find that, or what I found is that the friendships that I have with people now go far deeper than any friendship I had within the organization, because people genuinely care, and there's not conditions put on your friendship.
About to say it's unconditional love, isn't it?
Right, and they're not watching to be like, oh, did they do something that they weren't supposed to do? I thought I saw him smoking, or whatever. All of the policing that used to happen. I was a part of it. I was a rat. I wasn't a rat, but like, I just had this memory come back to me when I was a teenager. One time, my friends and I went out, and we like skateboarding, and so we went to this other town, and we're skateboarding, and one of my friends had brought some alcohol, and so and we were probably, I want to say we were 16 or 17 at the time, and so I was just like, no, that is not okay. And so I told them, I was like, you have to, if you don't talk to your parents about it, I'm going to tell them about it. And I feel like an asshole for that. Like, it was like 4 Zimas. Have you ever even heard of Zima? It's like I don't think it's around anymore. It's a beverage that was out sometime in the 90s, and it was not a lot of alcohol, and it was definitely not something that I needed to feel like I needed to report about. But that's just how we were taught to be.
It's just the level of control again, isn't it? So I think if there's one last question I've got for you, if your family are watching, or even if existing Jehovah's Witnesses are watching, if there's something you'd like to say to them, maybe in particular your family, what would that be?
Well, to my family, I will say that I love all of you unconditionally, and I always will. And my door is open. It's open always.
Yeah.
And to if you're in the organization or you're on the fence, there is another way. And the way of love that Jesus taught is not what we find within that organization. And I want you to be happy. And I think that being happy in this life is important, because we don't have a guarantee of anything else.
No, life's very fragile. Yeah.
Do what you need to do to be happy.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great to get you on the channel, Dan. All the best, obviously, with your project. I'm sure it's going to take off really well, and you're doing a great job with that. But it's been fantastic to get you on and to hear your story. Thank you very much, viewers, for watching. Please like and subscribe to the Shunned Experience channel. And thank you very much for watching.